We all like to think that we make decisions based on clear, logical thinking. However, our minds are often influenced by cognitive biases. Let's explore some of these fascinating biases that affect our thoughts and actions every day. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, and remember information in a way that confirms our pre-existing beliefs or theories. Imagine you're a firm believer in the benefits of a new diet. You might actively seek out success stories from people who have thrived on this diet, while ignoring or downplaying studies that show it may not be effective for everyone. This bias can reinforce our existing beliefs, making it difficult to change our minds, even when presented with new evidence. For example, a person who believes in astrology might focus on the times when horoscopes seemed accurate, while ignoring the times they were wrong. Anchoring bias occurs when we rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive, known as the anchor, when making decisions. For instance, if you're shopping for a car and the first one you see is priced at $30,000, you might judge all subsequent cars by this initial price, even if others are more reasonably priced or better suited to your needs. This bias can significantly impact negotiations, such as salary discussions or real estate transactions, where the initial offer or price can set the stage for all subsequent bargaining. For example, if a shirt is initially marked at $100 but then discounted to $50, you might perceive it as a great deal, even if its actual value is less than $50. Availability. Heuristic is a mental shortcut that relies on immediate examples that come to mind when evaluating a topic or decision. If you frequently hear about airplane crashes in the news, you might overestimate the likelihood of such events, despite statistics showing that air travel is one of the safest modes of transportation. This bias leads us to make judgments based on how easily we can recall information rather than unobjective data. For instance, after seeing several news stories about car thefts, you might think car theft is more common in your area than it actually is. Hindsight bias, also known as the knew-it-all-along effect, is the tendency to see events as having been predictable after they have already occurred. After the outcome of an event is known, such as a stock market crash or a sports game result, people often believe that they could have predicted it, even if they had no way of foreseeing it. This bias can lead us to overestimate our ability to predict events and can distort our understanding of cause and effect. For example, after a political election, people might say, "I knew that candidate would win," even though they expressed uncertainty before the results were announced. The Dunning-Kruger effect is a cognitive bias in which people with low ability or knowledge in a specific area overestimate their competence, while experts might underestimate theirs. For example, someone who just started learning to play chess might believe they are ready to compete in a tournament, unaware of the depth of strategy required. Conversely, a seasoned chess player might underestimate their own skill, assuming that what they find easy must be easy for everyone. This bias can lead to overconfidence among novices and a lack of confidence among experts, influencing decisions and performance in various fields, from business to personal development. For instance, a novice guitar player might think they're ready to perform live, while a seasoned musician may feel they still have much to learn. Self-serving bias is the common habit of attributing positive events to one's own character or actions, while attributing negative events to external factors. For instance, if you win a game, you might credit your skill and hard work, but if you lose, you might blame bad luck or unfair conditions. This bias helps maintain self-esteem and can protect us from feeling responsible for failures. However, it can also prevent us from recognizing our mistakes and learning from them, leading to repeated errors and a skewed perception of our abilities. For example, a student who scores well on a test might attribute their success to their intelligence, while blaming a poor grade on a difficult exam or an unfair teacher. Fundamental attribution. Error is the tendency to attribute other people's behavior to their character or disposition, rather than to situational factors. For example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, you might think they are a reckless or rude driver, rather than considering they might be rushing to an emergency. This bias leads us to make snap judgments about others without fully understanding their circumstances. It can result in misunderstandings and unfair assessments of people's actions, influencing how we interact with them and form opinions. For instance, if a colleague misses a deadline, you might think they are lazy or disorganized, rather than considering they might have had a personal emergency. The halo effect is a type of cognitive bias in which our overall impression of a person influences our feelings and thoughts about their character. If we find someone attractive or likable, we are more likely to perceive them as intelligent, kind, or capable, even without evidence to support these attributes. For example, a charismatic politician might be assumed to have good policies simply because of their charm, or an attractive job candidate might be judged more favorably in an interview. This bias can affect hiring decisions, academic evaluations, and everyday interactions, often leading to favoritism or unjustified positive assessments. For instance, if a student is well-behaved and likable, teachers might assume they are also academically capable, even if their performance does not reflect this. The bandwagon effect is the tendency to adopt certain behaviors, styles, or attitudes simply because many others are doing the same. This bias can lead to conformity and the spread of ideas or trends, regardless of their actual merit. It plays a significant role in social phenomena, such as fashion trends, viral social media challenges, and political movements, where the popularity of an idea or action can influence individuals to follow suit. The bandwagon effect can drive collective behavior, sometimes leading to the rapid spread of both positive innovations and harmful practices. For instance, someone might start wearing a specific brand because it's popular among their friends, even if they don't particularly like it. Loss aversion describes our tendency to prefer avoiding losses rather than acquiring equivalent gains. For example, the pain of losing $100 feels more intense than the pleasure of gaining $100. This bias can lead to risk-averse behavior and decision-making, influencing everything from investment strategies to personal choices such as whether to continue investing time in a failing project or relationship. Loss aversion can also make us more likely to hold on to unprofitable investments or avoid taking risks that could lead to significant gains, affecting our financial and personal growth. For example, someone might refuse to sell a declining stock because they don't want to realize a loss, even though selling would prevent further losses. The framing effect occurs when our decisions are influenced by the way information is presented rather than by the information itself. For example, people are more likely to choose a medical treatment with a 90% survival rate than one with a 10% mortality rate, even though both describe the same probability. This bias can significantly affect our judgments and choices, especially in contexts involving risk and uncertainty, such as healthcare, finance, and public policy. By understanding framing effects, we can strive to make more informed decisions based on the actual content of the information, rather than its presentation. For instance, people might prefer a product labeled 80% fat-free over one labeled contains 20% fat, even though both labels are describing the same thing.
Sunk cost fallacy is the tendency to continue investing in a losing proposition because of the amount of resources already invested. For instance, you might keep watching a boring movie just because you've already spent money on the ticket. Or you might continue funding a failing business project because of the significant investment you've already made. This bias can lead to irrational decision-making and a reluctance to cut losses, perpetuating bad investments or unproductive projects. Recognizing this fallacy can help us make more rational decisions, focusing on future benefits rather than past costs. For example, you might keep eating a meal you don't enjoy because you paid for it, even though stopping would make you happier. The overconfidence bias leads us to overestimate our knowledge, abilities, or control over events. This bias can make us take greater risks, underestimate potential problems, and ignore the advice of others. For example, an investor might overestimate their ability to pick winning stocks, leading to excessive risk-taking and potential financial losses. Overconfidence is a common factor in financial bubbles, failed business ventures, and poor personal decisions, as it can lead to a lack of preparation and an underestimation of challenges. For instance, a student might neglect to study for an exam, believing they already know the material well enough to pass easily. The placebo effect demonstrates how our expectations can influence our perceptions of reality. When people believe they are receiving treatment, they can experience real improvements in their condition, even if the treatment is inactive or a placebo. This bias highlights the powerful connection between mind and body and the impact of belief on our health and well-being. It underscores the importance of psychological factors in medical treatment and the potential for positive thinking to contribute to physical health. For example, someone taking a sugar pill for a headache might report feeling better simply because they believe they are taking real medicine. Cognitive biases are an inherent part of human thinking, shaping our perceptions, judgments, and decisions in ways we often don't realize. By understanding and recognizing these biases, we can strive to think more critically, make better choices, and understand the world and ourselves more accurately. These biases remind us of the complexity of human cognition and the need for ongoing self-awareness and reflection in our pursuit of truth and clarity.